Most people believe they are paid for how hard they work, but the market operates on a colder logic. It doesn't value the sweat you put in. It values the trouble that starts when you are plucked out of the system. If you disappear and the wheel doesn't stop, your effort hasn't actually bought you any security. The real measure of your position is friction. This is the slowdown that occurs when work no longer moves smoothly, the mistakes that spread, the deadlines that slip, and the systemic stress that piles up on everyone else because a specific gap was left behind. When your absence creates no friction, you have no leverage. This makes your pay easier to hold down, your role easier to pressure, and your schedule easier for others to control. To change this, you have to look at your role through a different lens. With a pen and paper, we can map out exactly where your current value sits and where the real leverage is hidden. Shifting your focus from being a good worker to being a worker who is difficult to substitute is the only way to gain genuine control over your career. The first step is identifying where you are currently positioned. On the left, we see the generalist, useful but surrounded by people who can do the exact same thing. On the right is the specialist, whose power is anchored in being the specific point where different parts of the company meet. List your daily tasks and be honest about the barrier to entry. Cross out anything that a new hire could learn to do in their first week. If the value you bring is broad and familiar, you are standing in the busiest, most replaceable part of the market. Now, look at what's left. Highlight the tasks that involved money, major project decisions, or the relationships that keep your biggest clients from leaving. When these specific tasks are neglected, the system feels it immediately. Errors multiply, and management faces a spike in stress that they cannot easily offload to someone else. Actual power comes from moving away from general administrative tasks and deliberately owning these high-stress bottlenecks. You want to be the point of resistance in the flow, not just another part of it. Scarcity is rarely about being a once-in-a-generation genius. It's about stacking common skills in uncommon combinations. Start with your core technical skill, the thing you were originally hired to do, like accounting or project management. Now add a complementary skill that people in your field usually lack. This might be public speaking, conflict resolution, or the ability to translate technical data for an executive team. Finally, master a niche tool or a specific software that is critical to your industry but tedious for others to learn. When you combine these three, you create a profile that is very difficult for a company to find in a single job posting. If you leave, they don't just lose an employee, they lose a specific combination of capabilities. They can no longer replace you with one standard hire. They often have to hire 2 or 3 people to cover your specific footprint. Beyond your skills, there's context, the invisible web of unwritten rules, internal politics, and historical knowledge unique to your office. Identify the people who hold the real, informal decision-making power. It often has nothing to do with their official job titles. Note the bottlenecks that management consistently misses and the specific reasons why certain projects always seem to stall. A new hire with an impressive resume can only do the job as it's described on paper. They are blind to the institutional landmines that you already know how to navigate. Localized knowledge allows you to move through the system without creating extra chaos. This isn't something that can be taught in an orientation. It has to be earned over time, which makes it an asset that is incredibly expensive to replace. The final multiplier is trust. This is what turns specific skills into real, long-term leverage. You build this by anticipating the gap. Solve one small, unassigned problem every day before your manager even realizes it exists. Practice operating completely autonomously. Execute your major tasks from start to finish without ever requiring check-ins, monitoring, or reminders. Become the definitive source of truth for one specific, tedious detail that everyone else avoids. When you are the only one who truly knows how a certain system works, you become an anchor for the whole team. Every time a manager has to monitor, remind, or clean up after an employee, it costs the company time and mental energy. The market is full of people who can perform a task when they are watched. It is very short on people who can be trusted to handle the work unseen. Replacing a skill is a logistical problem. Replacing a relationship of trust is a much larger investment. Removing the friction of management changes the power dynamic in your favor. When you handle the details without being asked, You are no longer someone who needs a supervisor. You are the person the supervisor depends on to keep the system stable. Look at the list you've made. Between your high-friction tasks, your skill combinations, and your daily habits, you have the blueprint for a much more secure position. When you are easy to replace, you are forced to accept whatever terms are offered. But when you are the person who prevents the system from breaking, you gain the freedom to ask for better pay, more flexibility, and more respect. Trying to be slightly better at common tasks is a losing strategy. It keeps you in the busiest part of the market where your effort is easily ignored. Tomorrow morning, start focusing on the bottlenecks and the skills that others avoid. Start building the dependencies that will make your absence a problem they don't want to solve. High irreplaceability is the mechanic that allows you to stop playing defense and start setting the terms of your own value.